The slap echoed through the crowded marketplace like a gunshot. 72-year-old Mama Adunni stumbled backward, her worn headscarf falling to the dusty ground, her weathered hand flying to her stinging cheek. The basket of oranges she'd been carrying scattered across the pavement, rolling between the feet of shocked onlookers. Standing over her was 21-year-old Tunde Bakare, his designer polo shirt and expensive sneakers marking him as someone who didn't belong in this part of Ibadan. His face was twisted with rage and disgust as he pointed at the old woman struggling to maintain her balance. "You blind old fool," Tunde shouted, his voice dripping with contempt. "You just bumped into me and stained my shirt with your dirty hands. Do you know how much this costs? More than you'll make in 5 years selling your stupid oranges." Mama Adunni's legs trembled as she tried to steady herself. At her age, a blow like that could have sent her crashing to the ground. The crowd that had been bustling through Oj Market moments ago had frozen, staring at the scene in disbelief. "I am sorry, my son," Mama Adunni said softly, her voice shaking. "I didn't see you. The crowd pushed me and—" "Don't call me your son," Tunde spat, his handsome face contorted with hatred. "I'm not related to poverty-stricken rats like you. You probably did it on purpose, thinking I'd give you money out of pity. Well, guess what? You're getting nothing but this lesson." A middle-aged woman in the crowd stepped forward. "Young man, there's no need for violence. She's an old woman. She apologized. Let it go." Tunde rounded on her with the same vicious energy. "Mind your business. This is between me and this beggar, unless you want the same treatment." The woman stepped back, fear flickering across her face. Mama Adunni bent down slowly, her joints creaking, trying to gather her scattered oranges. Her hands shook, not from fear, but from something else. Something the arrogant young man couldn't see. Something nobody in this market would ever suspect. "Look at you," Tunde continued his tirade, pulling out his phone to record. "Crawling on the ground like the insect you are. This is what happens when useless people don't know their place. Maybe this video will teach others like you to watch where you're going." He zoomed in on Mama Adunni's face, capturing her weathered features, her simple wrapper and blouse that had been mended multiple times, her calloused hands picking up fruit from the dirty ground. "Everyone, look at this," Tunde announced to his phone, then to the crowd. "This is why I hate coming to these local markets, full of poor, careless people who don't respect their betters. My father told me to pick up his documents from a shop here, but after this, I'm never coming back to this slum again." A young man in the crowd, probably in his 30s, spoke up with barely controlled anger. "Oga, you've made your point. She apologized. Just leave the woman alone." "Or what?" Tunde challenged, stepping toward him aggressively. "What are you going to do? I'm Tunde Bakare. My father is Chief Bakare, one of the richest men in Ibadan. Do you know what that means? It means I can do whatever I want and people like you can't do anything about it." The young man's fists clenched, but an older man beside him put a restraining hand on his shoulder, whispering something that made him step back reluctantly. Tunde smirked, sensing victory. He turned back to Mama Adunni, who had managed to collect most of her oranges back into her basket. She stood slowly, her back bent with age, her eyes downcast. "Next time," Tunde said, pointing his manicured finger in her face, "watch where you're going. Or better yet, stay home. The streets aren't for old, useless people like you. You're taking up space that productive members of society need." He deliberately kicked the basket at her feet, sending several oranges rolling away again. "Oops," he said with mock innocence. "My foot slipped. I guess you'll have to pick them up again. Good exercise for you." Mama Adunni said nothing. She simply looked at him, really looked at him, for the first time. Her eyes, which had seemed dull and defeated moments ago, now held something deeper, something calculating, something that would have made Tunde nervous if he'd been paying attention instead of checking his phone. But he wasn't paying attention. He was already typing furiously, probably posting the video to his social media with some caption about teaching local market people lessons. "Useless old woman," Tunde muttered one last time before turning to leave, shouldering his way through the crowd like he owned the space. The marketplace slowly returned to life, People went back to their business, though many cast sympathetic glances at Mama Adunni. A few women came to help her gather the remaining oranges. "Are you all right, Mama?" one young woman asked, genuine concern in her voice. "I'm fine, my daughter," Mama Adunni replied, her voice steadier now. "Thank you." "That boy is wicked," another woman said, shaking her head. "No home training, his parents failed him." Mama Adunni smiled slightly, a smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Don't worry, every seed planted must bear fruit, good or bad." The women helped her arrange her basket, offered her water, and made sure she could walk properly. After assuring them multiple times that she was fine, Mama Adunni made her way through the market, moving slowly but deliberately. What none of them knew, what Tunde certainly didn't know, was that Mama Adunni wasn't just any orange seller. The simple wrapper and worn headscarf were a choice, not a necessity. The small basket of oranges wasn't her livelihood, it was her disguise. For 15 years, Mama Adunni had walked through markets across Ibadan, dressed as a poor trader, observing, learning, understanding the real lives of ordinary people. It was a practice she'd started after her husband died, leaving her one of the wealthiest widows in Nigeria. She'd learned that wealth attracted liars, schemers, and people who wanted to use her, but poverty, or the appearance of it, revealed truth. She'd seen the best of humanity in these markets. Vendors sharing their last naira with someone hungrier, young people helping elderly strangers, communities supporting each other through hardship. And she'd seen the worst, exactly what Tunde had just demonstrated. Now, as she walked toward the market's exit, Mama Adunni pulled out a phone from a hidden pocket in her wrapper. Not a cheap phone, but the latest model, which she kept for important calls. She dialed a number. It was answered on the first ring. "Barrister Adelek," she said calmly, her voice no longer trembling. "I need you to look into someone for me, Tunde Bakare, son of Chief Bakare. I want to know everything about him, his school, his activities, his father's business dealings, everything. And I need it by tomorrow morning." She listened to the response, then continued. "Also, check if there have been other incidents like today. I suspect this wasn't his first time showing such behavior. Young men that bold usually have practice." After hanging up, she made another call. "Samuel, come pick me up at Oj Market. Yes, the usual spot. And please bring my proper clothes. I have several meetings this afternoon." As she waited for her driver, Mama Adunni touched her cheek where Tunde had slapped her. It still stung, but the pain was nothing compared to what she'd endured in her 72 years. Losing her parents young, building a business from nothing alongside her late husband, surviving those who tried to cheat her out of her inheritance. She'd learned long ago that the best revenge wasn't immediate. It was calculated, thorough, and absolutely devastating. Tunde Bakare had just made the biggest mistake of his privileged life. And he had no idea what was coming. A black Mercedes pulled up, understated but expensive. Samuel, her driver of 20 years, stepped out and opened the door for her. Inside, he'd laid out one of her elegant outfits and her favorite jewelry. "Rough day at the market, madam?" Samuel asked carefully, noticing the red mark on her cheek. "Enlightening," Mama Adunni replied. "Very enlightening. Sometimes, Samuel, young people need to learn that appearances can be deceiving, and that every action has consequences." As the car pulled away from the market, heading toward the affluent part of Ibadan where her real home stood, a mansion that most of the city's elite knew belonged to Chief Mrs. Adunni Oladele, business mogul and philanthropist, she allowed herself a small smile. Tunde thought he'd humiliated a powerless old woman. He was about to discover just how powerless she wasn't. Wow, Tunde has no idea who he just slapped. What do you think Mama Adunni is going to do to him? Drop your predictions in the comments, if you're already hooked. Smash that like button and subscribe to Stories by Ajibs so you don't miss next chapter. Turn on those notifications. This is about to get good. 24 hours after the slap, Tunde Bakare sat in his favorite spot at the University of Ibadan's premium cafe, surrounded by his usual crew of admirers and hangers-on. His phone buzzed constantly with notifications, likes, comments, and shares on the video he'd posted of teaching that old market woman a lesson. "Bro, this video is blowing up," his friend Kazim laughed, scrolling through the comments. "Over 50,000 views already. People are loving it." Tunde smirked, leaning back in his chair with the confidence of someone who'd never faced real consequences. Of course they are. Someone needed to put these local market people in their place. They think they can just bump into anybody and get away with it. His girlfriend, Bisola, a pretty girl who changed her hair color every week, giggled and kissed his cheek. "You're so bold, baby. That's why I love you. You don't take nonsense from anybody." Not everyone at the table seemed comfortable, though. Tunde's Corsa-mate, Emeka, frowned at his phone. "Guy, some people in the comments are calling you out. They're saying you were too harsh, that she's someone's grandmother." Tunde waved dismissively. "Ignore them. Broke people always defend broke people. They're just jealous because my shirt costs more than their school fees." What Tunde didn't know was that, at that very moment, across town in her elegant home office, Mama Adunni was reading a comprehensive report that Barrister Adelic had delivered that morning. The report was thorough, devastating, and confirmed her worst suspicions. "Madam," Barrister Adelic said, sitting across from her, "this young man is a serial offender. The market incident wasn't isolated. I found 6 documented cases over the past 2 years." He opened his folder, laying out printed evidence. 3 months ago, he assaulted a security guard at a shopping mall for taking too long to open the gate. The guard was fired after Tunde's father intervened. 6 months before that, he pushed a female student down the stairs at the university because she refused his advances. Her family tried to press charges, but Chief Bakare paid them off. The list goes on. Mama Adunni's face remained calm, but her eyes hardened. "And the university, they know about this." "They do," Barrister Adelic confirmed. "But Chief Bakare is a major donor. He built their new library. The administration has been looking the other way, giving Tunde multiple final warnings that never amount to anything." "What about his father's business dealings?" The lawyer's expression grew grim. "Chief Bakare's construction company has won several government contracts over the past 5 years. I found irregularities, inflated budgets, substandard materials, projects that were paid for but never completed. He's been bribing officials and cutting corners. People have died because of his shoddy construction work." Mama Adunni absorbed this information in silence. Finally, she spoke. "And the boy, what's his academic standing?" "Barely passing. He's in his final year studying business administration, but most of his grades are questionable. Several professors have complained privately that he submits plagiarized work and threatens them when they try to fail him. One lecturer who gave him an F last semester was mysteriously transferred to a different department." "I see." Mama Adunni stood and walked to her window, looking out at her well-maintained gardens. "Barrister, I want you to do something for me. Quietly acquire copies of all the evidence of Chief Bakare's fraudulent contracts. Every document, every receipt, every communication. Can you do that?" "It will take some time and resources, but yes, I have contacts who can help." "Good, and regarding Tunde specifically, I want detailed documentation of every incident, every victim. Find these people. I want to speak with them personally." Barrister Adelic made notes. "May I ask what you're planning, madam?" Mama Adunni turned to face him, and her expression was steel. "I'm planning to teach a lesson, not just to that boy, but to everyone who thinks wealth gives them the right to abuse others. My husband and I built our fortune through hard work and integrity. We never forgot where we came from, but people like Chief Bakare and his son, they've forgotten that money doesn't make you better than anyone. It just makes you more responsible." She sat back down at her desk. "Start with the victims. I want to help them properly. The security guard who was fired, the girl who was pushed, every single person Tunde has hurt. Find out what they need. Education funds, medical bills, business capital. Whatever it is, I'll provide it, anonymously for now." "That's very generous, madam." "It's not generosity, it's justice." Mama Adunni's voice was firm. "And once we've helped his victims, we'll deal with Tunde himself. But I want it done right, methodically. so that when the reckoning comes, it's undeniable. Meanwhile, back at the university cafe, Tun's day was about to take an interesting turn. A young woman approached his table, attractive, well-dressed, confident. She introduced herself as Ronk, a journalism student working on a feature story about student life and social consciousness. "I saw your video," she said, her voice neutral. "The one from the market, it's quite popular." Tun's chest puffed with pride. "Yeah, it went viral. What about it?" "I'm doing a piece on how young people handle conflicts in public spaces," Ronk explained smoothly. "Would you be willing to give me an interview? Share your perspective on what happened. It would be great for my assignment, and you'd get more exposure." Tun's ego couldn't resist. "Sure, why not when?" "How about tomorrow? I can meet you wherever is convenient." What Tun didn't know was that Ronk wasn't just any journalism student. She was the daughter of one of Mama Adunni's oldest friends, and she'd volunteered to help after hearing what had happened. The interview would be carefully recorded, giving Tund enough rope to hang himself with his own words. The next day, Tund met Ronk at a quiet cafe off campus. She had her recording equipment set up professionally, making him feel important. The interview started with softball questions about his background, his studies, his father's success. Then she steered toward the market incident. "So, tell me about the video," Ronk said. "What was going through your mind when that woman bumped into you?" Tund leaned back, completely comfortable now. "Honestly, I was angry. These local market people need to learn their place. They're careless, dirty, and they think they can do whatever they want. Someone needed to teach her a lesson." "You slapped her," Ronk said, her tone still neutral. "That's quite a strong reaction to an accidental bump." "She deserved it," Tund said confidently. "People respect strength. If I'd just let it go, she would have thought it was okay to bump into people. Sometimes you have to use force to make a point." "I see. And do you think being from a wealthy family gives you certain privileges in situations like this?" "Absolutely," Tund said without hesitation. "My father is chief back heir. He's built half of Ibadan. We've earned the right to be respected. These poor people should be grateful people like us even acknowledge their existence." Ronk's expression remained professional, but inside she was shocked at how freely he was incriminating himself. "So, you believe wealth determines a person's value?" "Of course, look around. Who runs this country? Rich people. Who makes the rules? Rich people. Who actually matters? Rich people. The rest are just extras in our story." "And the woman you slapped, did you know anything about her?" Tund laughed. "What's there to know? She's an old market woman selling oranges, probably illiterate, probably never accomplished anything in her life. That's all I needed to know." Ronk nodded, making notes. "One final question. If you could send a message to people watching that video, what would it be?" Tund looked directly at the camera. "Know your place. If you're poor, stay in your lane. Don't bump into your betters and expect sympathy. And if someone like me teaches you a lesson, learn from it instead of complaining." "Thank you for your time," Ronk said, packing up her equipment. After Tund left, feeling satisfied with how the interview went, Ronk immediately sent the full recording to Mama Adunni. That evening, Mama Adunni sat in her study, watching the interview on her laptop. Her assistant, Falik, sat beside her, equally appalled. "Madam, he's even worse than we thought," Falik said. "He actually believes these things." "He does," Mama Adunni agreed quietly, "which makes what comes next even more necessary. People like Tund don't change through gentle correction. They change through consequences." She picked up her phone and made a call. "Barrister Adelek, how is the evidence gathering going?" "Very well, madam. I've spoken with 4 of the victims already. They're all willing to come forward if properly protected. And I've secured documents proving Chief Bakkare's construction fraud. It's substantial." "Good. Tomorrow, I want you to do 2 things. First, contact the university's board of governors, the members who aren't in Chief Bakkare's pocket. Share Tun's interview and the documentation of his previous offenses. Let them know that if they don't act, this will become very public very soon. And the second thing, schedule a meeting with the commissioner of police. The real one, not the one Chief Bakare has bought. I have information about construction fraud that led to 3 deaths when a building collapsed last year. I believe the evidence will interest him greatly. Madam, if we do this, Chief Bakare will know someone is targeting him. Let him know, Mama Adunni said firmly. Let him wonder who has the power and resources to challenge him. Let him feel what his victims have felt, fear and uncertainty. But he won't know it's me, not yet. She ended the call and looked at the red mark on her cheek, now faded to a light bruise. She touched it gently. You know, she said to Falik, that slap was actually a gift. It showed me exactly what kind of people the Bakares are, and it gave me the motivation to do what should have been done long ago, stop them from hurting anyone else. Falik smiled. That boy has no idea what's coming. No, Mama Adunni agreed. He doesn't, but he will. 1 week after the interview, Tunde walked into the University of Ibadan's administrative building with his usual swagger, but today was different. He'd been summoned by the vice-chancellor himself, not through his usual departmental channels, but through a formal letter delivered to his father's house. Chief Bakare had been furious when he saw the letter. What did you do now, Tunde? The VC doesn't summon students unless it's serious. Probably nothing, Tunde had replied dismissively. You know how these university people are. They're probably asking for another donation and want to butter me up first. But as Tunde sat in the waiting area outside the vice-chancellor's office, watching stern-faced members of the Board of Governors file in, a seed of unease planted itself in his stomach. The secretary finally called him in. Mr. Bakare, you may enter now. The office was packed. The vice-chancellor, Professor Adebio, sat behind his desk looking grim. 5 members of the Board of Governors occupied chairs along the wall. The Dean of Student Affairs stood by the window. And someone Tunde didn't recognize, a woman in a sharp suit with a briefcase, sat in the corner taking notes. Mr. Bakare, Professor Adebio began without preamble. Do you know why you're here? Tunde's confidence wavered, but he forced a smile. Not really, sir, but I'm happy to help with whatever you need. We're not asking for your help, the vice-chancellor said coldly. We're here to address a serious matter of student conduct. Multiple serious matters, actually. He pressed a button on his laptop, and the screen on the wall lit up. It was the video from the market, the one Tunde had posted himself, showing him slapping Mama Adunni. This video has come to our attention, Professor Adebio continued, along with several other incidents that paint a disturbing pattern of violent behavior, academic dishonesty, and abuse of privilege. Tunde's mouth went dry. Sir, that video, it's taken out of context. That woman bumped into me and... Silence, the vice-chancellor's voice cut through like a knife. You will speak when asked a direct question. Is that clear? Tunde nodded, suddenly feeling smaller than he'd felt in years. One of the board members, a distinguished woman in her 60s named Dr. Okonkwo, spoke next. Mr. Bakare, we have documented evidence of 6 separate incidents of assault or harassment over the past 2 years. We have statements from victims, security footage, and witness testimonies. Would you like to deny any of these allegations? She opened a folder and began reading. March 2024, you assaulted a security guard at Palms Mall. May 2024, you pushed Miss Aminat Bello down a flight of stairs after she rejected your romantic advances. August 2024, you threatened Professor Akaro with your father's influence when he attempted to fail you for plagiarism. November 2024, you destroyed another student's project because he scored higher than you. And most recently, you physically assaulted an elderly woman in a public market and posted video evidence of it online, apparently proud of your actions. Each item on the list made Tunde sink lower in his chair. These are lies, he finally burst out. My father will hear about this. Do you know who he is? He built your library. He's donated millions to this university. We know exactly who your father is, Professor Adebio replied icily. And that's part of the problem. This institution has allowed your behavior to continue unchecked because of his donations. That ends today. He slid a document across the desk. Effective immediately, you are suspended from the University of Ibadan pending a full disciplinary hearing. The hearing will take place in 2 weeks, and you will have the opportunity to defend yourself. However, based on the evidence we've compiled, I would advise you to prepare for expulsion. You can't do this, Tunde shot to his feet. My father won't let you heal. Your father has already been contacted, the vice-chancellor interrupted. He's been informed of the situation, and I should tell you, Mr. Bakare, that your father is currently dealing with his own legal issues that may make it difficult for him to intervene on your behalf. Tunde's face went pale. What are you talking about? Dr. Okonkwo answered. Your father's construction company is under investigation by the police and the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Apparently, someone provided them with extensive evidence of fraud, bribery, and criminal negligence resulting in death. I believe 3 people died when one of his buildings collapsed last year due to substandard materials. The room spun. This couldn't be happening, not to him, not to his father. Who? Tunde demanded, his voice cracking. Who's doing this to us? That's not our concern, Professor Adebio said. Our concern is that this university has failed in its duty to maintain proper standards of conduct. We've allowed a culture where wealth could buy immunity from consequences. That changes now. He stood, signaling the meeting was over. You have 2 weeks to prepare for your hearing. Until then, you are banned from campus. Security has been notified. If you attempt to enter university property, you will be arrested for trespassing. You may go. Tunde stumbled out of the office, his mind reeling. In the hallway, he immediately called his father. Chief Bakare answered on the 5th ring, and he sounded tired, defeated, even. Tunde, I can't talk right now. I have lawyers here. Someone has brought evidence to the police about the Mainland Plaza project. They're threatening criminal charges. Dad, the university just suspended me. They're talking about expulsion. I know, they called me this morning. Tunde, I can't fix this right now. I have bigger problems. Just stay home. Don't do anything stupid. I'll handle it when I can. The line went dead. Tunde stood in the hallway, truly afraid for the first time in his privileged life. Students passed by, some whispering and pointing. Someone had clearly leaked that he'd been summoned. His phone started buzzing with messages from friends asking what happened. Then he saw something that made his blood run cold. Someone had posted a new video online, the interview with Ronk. The full, unedited version where he'd bragged about his wealth giving him the right to abuse people, where he'd called poor people extras in our story, where he'd shown absolutely no remorse for slapping an elderly woman. The video was going viral, but this time the comments weren't supportive. They were vicious. This boy is evil. Someone needs to teach him the lesson he's been avoiding. His father raised a monster. I hope they expel him and throw away the key. Tunde's carefully constructed image was crumbling. His phone rang. It was Bisola, his girlfriend. Tunde, we need to talk, she said when he answered. Baby, thank God. I need you right now. Something crazy is happening and… I'm breaking up with you, Bisola interrupted flatly. I can't be associated with you anymore. That interview is everywhere and people are saying terrible things. My parents told me to stay away from you. Don't call me again. She hung up. One by one. His friends started distancing themselves. Text messages went unanswered. Social media posts were deleted. By evening, Tunde found himself effectively friendless, suspended, and watching his father's empire crumble on the news. The evening broadcast showed footage of police officers raiding Chief Bakare's company offices, carrying out boxes of documents. The reporter's voice was grave. Chief Adebio Bakare's construction company is under investigation for multiple counts of fraud and criminal negligence. Sources say the evidence was provided by an anonymous whistleblower with intimate knowledge of the company's operations. Tunde sat in his bedroom, his luxurious bedroom in his father's mansion, and for the first time understood what it felt like to be powerless. His phone buzzed with an unknown number. Against his better judgment, he answered. Mr. Bakare, a calm, professional voice said. This is Barrister Adelek. I represent several of your victims, the people you've assaulted, harassed, and intimidated over the past 2 years." "I don't know what you're talking about," Tunde said weakly. "Yes, you do. The security guard you had fired. Miss Aminat Bello, whom you pushed down the stairs. The elderly woman you slapped in the market. They're all my clients now, and will be filing both civil and criminal charges against you. You'll be hearing from us officially very soon." "Who's paying you?" Tunde demanded. "Who's behind all this?" "Someone who believes in justice," the lawyer replied. "Someone who understands that wealth doesn't place you above the law. You'll find out who when the time is right. For now, I'd suggest you get your own lawyer. You're going to need one." The line went dead. Tunde threw his phone across the room, watching it shatter against the wall. Then he did something he hadn't done since he was a small child. He cried. Not tears of remorse or understanding, tears of frustration and self-pity. Because even now, even with his world collapsing, Tunde Bakare still didn't understand what he'd done wrong. He still believed he was the victim. And that, more than anything else, meant his education in consequences had only just begun. Across town, in her elegant study, Mama Adunni received a call from Barrister Adelek reporting on his conversation with Tunde. "How did he sound?" she asked. "Scared, angry, but not remorseful. He still doesn't understand, madam." "He will," Mama Adunni said quietly. "Before this is over, he will. What about the victims? How are they doing?" "Much better. The security guard has already found a new job, better pay, better conditions. Miss Aminat's medical bills have been paid, and she's receiving counseling. The others are being taken care of as well. They all want to thank you personally." "No need for thanks," Mama Adunni replied. "I'm just correcting an imbalance. These people suffered because someone thought they were too unimportant to matter. I'm simply showing them they do matter, very much." She paused, touching the spot on her cheek where Tunde had slapped her. The bruise was completely gone now, but the memory remained. "Is everything ready for Phase 3? She asked. "Yes, madam. The pieces are all in place." "Good. It's time Tunde Bakare learned the most important lesson of his life. The person you dismiss as worthless today might be the one who determines your tomorrow." Everything is falling apart for Tunde. His university, his father, his friends, all of it. But he still doesn't know who's behind it. What do you think happens next? Comment your predictions. If you're loving this karma, like this video and subscribe to Stories by Ajibs. We've got more chapters and the revenge is about to reach its peak. Hit that notification bell and share this with someone who believes in justice. 2 weeks passed like a nightmare for Tunde Bakare. His father's company had been shut down pending investigation. Their assets were frozen. The mansion they'd lived in so comfortably was suddenly under scrutiny, questions about how it was purchased, where the money came from, whether it would be seized. Chief Bakare himself had aged 10 years in 14 days. He barely spoke to Tunde anymore, spending most of his time locked in his study with lawyers who delivered increasingly bad news. Today was Tunde's disciplinary hearing at the university. He sat in the waiting area wearing clothes that suddenly felt too expensive, too showy. His lawyer, a young man his father had scraped together money to hire, sat beside him looking nervous. "Just be honest," the lawyer advised. "Show remorse, apologize sincerely. It's your only chance." But Tunde wasn't thinking about remorse. He was thinking about revenge. Someone had orchestrated all of this. Someone powerful enough to bring down his father's empire, turn the university against him, and coordinate his victims. When he found out who it was, when his father recovered from this setback, they would make that person pay. The hearing room doors opened. "Mr. Bakare, we're ready for you." Inside, the same panel from 2 weeks ago sat in judgment. But there were additional people present, faces Tunde recognized with growing dread. The security guard he'd assaulted sat in the front row. Aminat Bello, the girl he'd pushed down the stairs, was there too, her arms still in a sling. Professor Okoro, whom he'd threatened. 3 other students he'd bullied or cheated. They were all there, all his victims in one room, staring at him. "Mr. Bakare," Professor Adebio began, You're here to answer to multiple charges of assault, harassment, academic dishonesty, and conduct unbecoming of a university student. How do you plead?" Tun's lawyer stood. "My client wishes to make a statement before we proceed." The vice-chancellor nodded. Tund stood, his prepared apology sitting like ash in his mouth. He looked at the people he'd hurt, and something inside him rebelled. Even now, his pride wouldn't let him bow. "I made mistakes," he began, the words forced. "I lost my temper sometimes, but I've been under a lot of pressure. My father's business, my studies, the expectations." "Stop," Dr. Okonkwo's voice cut through his excuses. "Mr. Bakare, this panel has reviewed extensive evidence of your behavior. We've heard testimony from your victims. We've seen the videos you yourself posted, celebrating acts of cruelty. This isn't about pressure or mistakes. This is about a pattern of believing you're above consequences." She stood and approached him. "I want you to look at these people. Really look at them. Mr. Joshua over there lost his job because of you. He couldn't feed his family for 2 months. Miss Aminat suffered a broken arm and had to defer her studies for a semester. Professor Okoro faced harassment from your father's associates after you threatened him. Can you even comprehend the damage you've caused?" Tund looked at them, and for the first time, he saw them as real people instead of obstacles or annoyances. The security guard, Mr. Joshua, was probably in his 50s, with tired eyes and calloused hands. Aminat was younger than Tund, her face showing lingering pain when she moved her injured arm. Tund started, but words failed him. "The panel has reached a decision," Professor Adebio announced. "Tund Bakare, you are hereby expelled from the University of Ibadan effective immediately. Your academic records will reflect the reason for expulsion. Additionally, we are recommending that criminal charges be filed for your assault on Miss Bello and Mr. Joshua." The words hit Tund like physical blows. Expelled, criminal charges, his entire future evaporating. "Furthermore," the vice-chancellor continued, "we've been in contact with other universities in Nigeria. Your conduct will be reported to the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board. It's unlikely any reputable institution will accept you." Tund's lawyer tried to object, but Professor Adebio raised his hand. "This hearing is concluded. Mr. Bakare, you have 30 minutes to collect any personal belongings from campus. Security will escort you. You are never to set foot on this property again." As Tund stumbled out of the hearing room, his victims watched silently. Some with satisfaction, others with something closer to pity, but all of them with a sense that justice, delayed though it had been, had finally arrived. Outside, Tund called his father. "Dad, they expelled me. They're pressing charges. Dad, what do we do?" Chief Bakare's voice was hollow. "I don't know, son. I honestly don't know anymore." That evening, Tund sat in his bedroom surrounded by the trappings of his privileged life. Expensive gadgets, designer clothes, trophies from sports he'd never actually excelled at but had won through his father's influence. All of it felt meaningless now. His phone rang. Unknown number. He almost didn't answer, but something made him pick up. "Mr. Bakare," a familiar elderly voice said, "I believe we need to talk." Tund's blood went cold. "Who is this?" "Someone you met 2 weeks ago in Oj Market. Someone whose oranges you kicked. Someone whose face you slapped." "The old woman, the market vendor, but that couldn't be." "I don't understand," Tund whispered. "No, you don't," the voice agreed. "But you will. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m., come to the address I'm sending you. Come alone. It's time you learned the truth about who you assaulted." "Why should I?" "Because if you don't, the criminal charges proceed immediately. But if you come, I'll give you a choice. A chance, perhaps, to learn something valuable. The decision is yours." The line went dead. Seconds later, a text arrived with an address in one of Ibadan's most exclusive neighborhoods, the kind of place Tund's family aspired to but could never quite afford. That night, Tund barely slept. His mind raced with possibilities. Who was this woman? How did a market vendor have the power to destroy his family? Nothing made sense. The next morning, Tund took a taxi to the address. His father's cars had been seized by authorities. The driver's eyes widened as they approached the massive gates of a sprawling estate. "Oga, this is Chief Mrs. Adunni Oladele's house," the driver said with reverence. "One of the richest women in Nigeria. Are you sure this is where you're going?" Tun's stomach dropped. Chief Mrs. Adunni Oladele. He'd heard the name. Everyone in Ibadan business circles had. A legendary businesswoman, philanthropist, widow of the late Chief Oladele who'd built a tech empire. She was worth billions and wielded enormous influence across Nigeria. But that couldn't be the old woman from the market. That was impossible. The gates opened automatically. The taxi drove through manicured gardens and past a fountain before reaching a mansion that made Tun's own home look like a cottage. A butler met him at the door. "Mr. Bakare, you're expected. This way, please." Tund followed on shaking legs through hallways lined with expensive art and family photographs. They stopped at a large sitting room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a garden. And there she was. The old woman from the market sat in an elegant chair, but she looked completely different. She wore an expensive traditional outfit with gold jewelry that was clearly real. Her gray hair was styled beautifully. Her posture was regal, commanding. But it was definitely her. The same eyes that had looked at him with that calculating expression after he'd slapped her. "Please sit down, Mr. Bakare," she said, her voice no longer trembling or weak. It was strong, educated, powerful. Tund sat, his mind unable to process what he was seeing. "I can see you're confused," Mama Adunni said. "Let me explain. My name is Chief Mrs. Adunni Oladele. For 15 years, since my husband died, I've spent my time walking through markets across Ibadan, dressed as a simple trader. I do this to stay connected to real people, to understand their struggles, to remember where I came from." She leaned forward slightly. "That day in Oj Market, I was doing exactly that, selling oranges, observing, learning. And then you bumped into me, or rather, the crowd pushed me into you. An accident. I apologized immediately." Tun's face burned with shame as the memory replayed with this new context. "But you didn't accept my apology," Mama Adunni continued. "You slapped me, a 72-year-old woman. You humiliated me in public. You kicked my oranges across the ground and told me I was worthless, that I should stay home, that I was taking up space meant for productive members of society." She stood and walked to the window. "Do you know what I've built in my lifetime, Mr. Bakare? I employ over 15,000 people across Nigeria. I've funded scholarships for 3,000 students from poor families. I've built hospitals, schools, and community centers. I've donated more money to charitable causes than your father has made in his entire career. And you called me worthless." Tund couldn't speak, couldn't move. Horror and shame paralyzed him. "I didn't reveal myself to you then because I wanted to see what you would do, how far your arrogance would take you. And you exceeded my worst expectations," Mama Adunni said. "You posted that video proudly. You gave that interview where you said poor people don't matter. You showed the world exactly who you are." She turned to face him fully. "Everything that's happened to you, the university investigation, your father's legal troubles, your victims coming forward, I orchestrated all of it. Not out of revenge, but out of responsibility." Responsibility. Tund finally found his voice. "Yes, responsibility to protect others from you, to stop you before you hurt more people, to teach you the lesson your father never did, that money doesn't make you superior. Character does. Integrity does. How you treat the most vulnerable members of society reveals who you truly are." She sat back down, her eyes boring into his. "Now, I'm going to give you a choice, Mr. Bakare. A choice you don't deserve, but one I'm offering anyway because I believe even the worst people can change if they truly want to." Tund leaned forward, desperate. "What choice?" "Option 1, I proceed with all criminal charges. You'll likely serve jail time for assault. Your father's company will be prosecuted to the fullest extent. Your family will lose everything. You'll have a criminal record that follows you forever." She paused. "Option 2, I drop the criminal charges. I help your father's company restructure legally. He keeps a smaller, honest business. And you, Mr. Bakare, spend the next 2 years working for me." "Working for you," Tund echoed. Yes, not in an office, not in a comfortable position. You'll work in my charitable foundations. You'll serve food at homeless shelters. You'll teach literacy classes in poor communities. You'll help build schools in rural villages. You'll spend every day for 2 years serving the kind of people you called worthless. She fixed him with a steady gaze. And if you complete those 2 years with genuine effort and growth, I'll write you a recommendation that will get you into any university in Nigeria. I'll give you a second chance at the education you threw away. But it has to be real, Mr. Bakare. Real humility, real service, real change. Tun's mind reeled. 2 years of hard labor, serving poor people, working under this woman's supervision. But the alternative was prison, complete ruin. Why? He asked. Why would you give me this chance after everything I did? Mama Adunni's expression softened slightly. Because someone gave me a chance once. When I was young and foolish and made terrible mistakes, someone saw potential in me and offered grace. I'm passing that forward. But understand this, it's the only chance you'll get. Mess it up, and option 1 becomes permanent. She extended her hand. So what will it be, Mr. Bakare? Prison or redemption? Tund looked at her hand. The hand of the woman he'd slapped, the woman he'd called worthless, the woman who held his entire future in her palm. For the first time in his life, Tunde Bakare made a humble choice. He took her hand. What a twist. The old woman is a billionaire who's been watching Tunde the whole time, and now she's offering him a chance at redemption. Do you think he can really change? Can people like Tunde learn humility? Drop your thoughts in the comments. We're almost at the end, one more chapter to go. Make sure you're subscribed to Stories by Ajibs and hit that like button. Turn on notifications for the final chapter. Share this story with everyone who needs to see it. 18 months later, Tunde Bakare stood in the scorching afternoon sun outside a half-built school in a rural village 3 hours from Ibadan. His hands were blistered from mixing cement, his designer clothes long replaced by simple work shirts that were now stained with dust and sweat. His once pristine appearance had been transformed. He was leaner, his skin darkened from constant outdoor work, his expression no longer carrying that arrogant sneer. Tunde, called out Baba Musa, the elderly village head. We need more blocks over here. Yes, Baba, Tunde responded, immediately moving to help carry the heavy concrete blocks. 6 months ago, he would have complained about the weight, the heat, the indignity of manual labor. Now he simply did the work. The past 18 months had been the hardest of Tunde's life. Mama Adunni, he now called her Ma with genuine respect, had kept her word. She dropped the criminal charges and helped his father restructure the business into something smaller but legitimate. Chief Bakare now ran an honest construction consultation firm, barely making a fraction of his former income, but sleeping better at night. As for Tunde, his education had been brutal and transformative. His first assignment had been working at a homeless shelter in Ibadan's poorest district. He'd served food to people living on the streets, cleaned facilities, listened to stories of loss and hardship. In the beginning, he'd been disgusted, resentful, counting down the days until this punishment ended. Then he'd met Mr. Joshua. The security guard he'd assaulted and gotten fired had been living at that very shelter, struggling to feed his family after months of unemployment. When Tunde had seen him in the food line, shame had crushed him so completely that he'd nearly quit the program entirely. But Mr. Joshua had recognized him, and instead of anger or hatred, the older man had simply said, "So you're learning now. Good. Better late than never." That moment had broken something in Tunde, some final wall of pride and self-deception. He'd apologized properly for the first time in his life, not because he had to, but because he genuinely understood the harm he'd caused. Mr. Joshua had accepted his apology. More than that, he'd become a mentor of sorts, teaching Tunde what real strength looked like, the strength to endure hardship with dignity, to keep going when life knocked you down, to find joy in small blessings. After 3 months at the shelter, Mama Adunni had sent Tunde to teach literacy classes in rural communities. He'd worked with adults who'd never had the educational opportunities he'd wasted. He'd seen grandmothers learning to read for the first time, their faces glowing with pride when they could finally write their own names. He'd met single mothers working 3 jobs to send their children to school. He'd met farmers who woke at dawn and worked until dusk just to survive. He'd met people who had every reason to be bitter about their circumstances, but chose gratitude instead. And slowly, painfully, Tund had begun to change. Now, standing in this village helping to build a school that would serve children who'd been walking 5 kilometers each way to the nearest classroom, Tund understood what Mama Adunni had been trying to teach him. Worth wasn't measured in money or status. It was measured in character, in what you contributed to the world, in how you treated people who could do nothing for you. "Water break," announced Falek, Mama Adunni's assistant, who supervised Tund's work. She'd been his constant shadow for 18 months, reporting his progress, or lack thereof, back to Ma. Tund joined the other workers in the shade, accepting a cup of water gratefully. Beside him sat Amanat Bello, the girl he'd pushed down the stairs. She was here too, but not as his victim, as his colleague. After Mama Adunni had paid for Amanat's medical treatment and education, the young woman had joined the foundation as a volunteer, helping to coordinate community projects. When she'd learned Tund was working in the same program, she could have requested a transfer. Instead, she'd asked to work alongside him. "To see if people can really change," she'd explained to Mama Adunni, "and to prove to myself that I'm not afraid of him anymore." Their relationship had been tense at first. Tund couldn't look at her without remembering his cruelty. But over months of working together, something had shifted. She'd seen his genuine effort, his transformation from arrogant bully to humble servant. And gradually, she'd forgiven him, not because she had to, but because she chose to. "You've come a long way," Amanat said now, offering him a piece of bread from her lunch. "The Tund I knew 18 months ago would have melted in this heat and quit by lunch." Tund accepted the bread with a grateful smile. "The Tund from 18 months ago was a fool. I'm just glad I got the chance to become someone different." "Ma is coming tomorrow," Falek announced, checking her phone. "She wants to see the school's progress and speak with Tund." Tund's stomach tightened. Tomorrow marked exactly 18 months since he'd accepted Mama Adunni's offer. The agreed-upon period was 2 years, but Ma had scheduled periodic evaluations. This would be a major one. That evening, Tund sat outside the small guest house where the workers stayed, writing in a journal Mama Adunni had required him to keep. Daily reflections on what he'd learned, how he'd grown, what he still needed to work on. His phone rang, his father. "Tund, how are you?" Chief Bakare's voice was warm but tired. The past 18 months had humbled him too. Losing his empire had forced him to confront his own shortcuts and compromises. "I'm good, Dad. We're almost finished with the school here. It's beautiful. The children are going to love it." "I'm proud of you, son," his father said quietly. "I know I never said that before, not when it mattered, but I'm saying it now. You're becoming the man I should have raised you to be." Tund's eyes stung. "I had to fall pretty far to learn how to climb properly." "We both did," Chief Bakare admitted. "But we're climbing now. That's what matters. Listen, I wanted you to know, I've been offered a contract to consult on a government housing project. It's honest work, good pay. We're going to be okay, Tund. Not rich like before, but okay. And this time it's built on integrity." After they hung up, Tund sat in the darkness, thinking about everything that had changed. He'd lost his university education, his wealth, his status, his friends. But he'd gained something more valuable, a conscience, empathy, purpose. The next morning, Mama Adunni arrived in her usual understated car. She'd never stopped her practice of dressing simply when visiting rural areas, though now Tund understood it wasn't disguise. It was respect, meeting people where they were rather than flaunting what she had. She toured the school with the village elders, Tund trailing behind. When she saw the quality of work, the thoughtful design that incorporated community input, the obvious care that had gone into every detail, she nodded with satisfaction. "Well done," she told the team. "This will serve generations of children." Later, she asked to speak with Tund privately. They walked to a quiet spot under a large tree overlooking the village. 18 months, Mama Adunni said. "You have 6 months remaining on our agreement. How do you feel?" Tund considered the question carefully. Grateful, humbled, different. I look back at who I was and I'm ashamed. But I'm also grateful because that person is dead. I killed him through this work and someone better is taking his place. The villagers speak highly of you, Mama Adunni continued. The shelter staff say you're one of their most dedicated volunteers. Amanat tells me you've become a good colleague and, surprisingly, a friend. She turned to face him fully. But I need to know something, Tund. Are you doing this because you want to avoid prison, or because you've genuinely changed? It was the question Tund had been asking himself for months. In the beginning, it was fear, he admitted honestly. I was terrified of prison, of losing everything. I did the work because I had to. But somewhere along the way, probably around month 6, when I was teaching Mama Kemi to read, and she cried because she could finally read her grandson's school reports, it stopped being punishment and started being purpose. He looked at the village, at the children playing near the school they'd built. I don't want to go back to who I was, Ma. Not because I'm afraid of consequences, but because I've seen what I can be. I've seen how much better it feels to build people up instead of tearing them down. I was miserable when I was arrogant and cruel. I'm happier now, covered in dust and cement, than I ever was in designer clothes. Mama Adunni studied him for a long moment. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out an envelope. This is a letter of recommendation, she said. It will get you admitted to any university in Nigeria. You've earned it, Tund, 6 months early. Tund's eyes widened. Ma, I still have 6 months left in our agreement. You've already learned what you needed to learn, she interrupted gently. The last 6 months were insurance to make sure the change was real, but I've seen enough. You're ready. She handed him the envelope. However, I'm also offering you a choice. You can take this letter, return to university, rebuild your life on the path you originally planned. Or... She paused significantly. Or, Tund prompted. Or you can stay with the foundation. I'm offering you a permanent position as a program coordinator. You'd continue this work, but with real responsibility, designing projects, training others, helping to expand our reach. The salary is modest, but the impact is significant. You'd be helping hundreds, eventually thousands of people. Tund stared at her, stunned. A few months ago, he would have grabbed the university recommendation without hesitation. Education meant status, career opportunities, a return to comfortable life. But now he thought about Mama Kemi's tears of joy, about the children who'd soon fill this school, about Mr. Joshua, who'd shown him grace he didn't deserve, about all the people he'd met who'd taught him what truly mattered. Can I ask you something, Ma? Tund said. Of course. That day in the market, when I slapped you, you could have revealed yourself right then. You could have had me arrested on the spot. Why didn't you? Mama Adunni smiled slightly. Because instant karma teaches instant lessons, sharp but shallow. I wanted you to learn something deeper. I wanted you to experience real consequences, yes, but also real redemption. I wanted you to discover that the people you dismissed as worthless are actually the ones who make the world turn. She touched his shoulder gently. You were cruel to me, Tund, but you were also young, ignorant, and shaped by a father who taught you the wrong values. I saw potential beneath the arrogance. I gambled that with the right guidance, you could become someone who uses privilege to serve rather than oppress. And did your gamble pay off? Tund asked. What do you think? She countered. Tund looked at the envelope in his hands, then at the village, then back at Mama Adunni. I'll take the position, he said firmly. I'll go back to school eventually, maybe part-time on my own merit, but right now this work is where I need to be, where I want to be. Mama Adunni's smile widened into something genuinely warm. I was hoping you'd say that. She pulled out another envelope. Then this is for you too. It's from all your victims, Mr. Joshua, Amanat, Professor Okoro, and the others. They wanted you to have it. Tund opened the envelope with shaking hands. Inside was a letter signed by everyone he'd hurt. Tund, we've watched your journey over these 18 months. We've seen you transform from the person who hurt us into someone who serves others. We want you to know that we forgive you completely. Not because we're required to, but because you've earned it through genuine change. We're proud of who you're becoming. Keep going." Tears streamed down Tun's face. He didn't try to hide them. "Thank you, Ma," he whispered, "for everything, for not giving up on me, for teaching me what I should have learned 21 years ago." "Thank you for being willing to learn," Mama Adunni replied. "That's rarer than you'd think." As the sun set over the village, Tund and Mama Adunni walked back together. The village children ran up to them, excited to show Tund a game they'd invented. He knelt down to their level, laughing as they explained the rules, completely present in a way the old Tund never could have been. Mama Adunni watched him with satisfaction. The arrogant boy who'd slapped an old woman in the market was truly gone. In his place was a young man who understood that real power wasn't dominance, it was service. Real wealth wasn't money, it was impact. Real worth wasn't status, it was character. Sometimes, she reflected, the best revenge wasn't punishment. It was transformation. She turned her assailant into her ally, her attacker into an advocate for the vulnerable. And in doing so, she'd ensured that the ripples from that one terrible slap would ultimately create waves of positive change. Years from now, Tund would help thousands of people through the foundation. He'd build schools, fund scholarships, create opportunities for those society had overlooked. And every person he helped would be part of his redemption, proof that people can change, if someone believes in them enough to demand their best self. As for the video that had started it all, the one of Tund slapping her in the market, Mama Adunni had kept it. Not as evidence, but as a reminder. A reminder that the person you underestimate today might change your life tomorrow. That mercy is more powerful than vengeance. And that everyone deserves a chance at redemption, even those who seem least deserving. Because in the end, justice isn't just about punishment. Sometimes, the truest justice is giving someone the opportunity to become worthy of forgiveness. And watching them rise to meet it.